Monday. I am not expecting everyone to be available. I'm going to leave this up for later, and we're going to talk about why we're behind on some things and some really important issues. So I'm going to wait till I have a moderator in to make sure that the sound's okay. I have Puppy with me. Little puppy update. She has, last couple weeks, her eyesight has been really bad, and I think she is probably pretty close to not being able to see at all. But she gets up every day and she keeps going, and she wouldn't want to not come to work, so she's going to keep coming until she can't. But that is the puppy update. I know you guys always ask about that, and so hello, Hose. I'm not even going to try to say that whole handle. I have both of you in right now. Can you just let me know if the sound is okay? I haven't done any live streams for a while. I did get new headphones. Okay, so if the sound's good, I'm going to give you an update. I haven't done a live stream in a long time, and I want to talk about what has happened really over the last month. And it started on January 30th when the Epstein files were released. And I want to remind everybody, even though I don't report on national politics or issues, the Epstein files, the related hearings, all the related reporting started with one reporter. Her name is Julie Brown. She works for the Miami Herald, and she was a reporter who kept listening to the noise. She kept listening to everybody telling her a different story than what the government was telling. And I followed her reporting. And so when there was the congressional hearings a few weeks ago, it was really, that's a reporter's, as a reporter, when you see the impact of your work, that's really the best reward. We don't get rich doing this job. And I heard a reporter one time talk about being an investigative reporter, and they said, we're the kind of personality that if your mother tells you that she loves you, you're going to investigate it. And that really is the difference between investigative reporters and beat reporters that tell you what the weather is, or just really kind of put a spin on government press releases and put it out there. And so I want to give a shout out. I don't know if she'll ever hear this, but Julie Brown's reporting, I followed what she did and how she did it. It's very important. And when the Epstein files were released, and when the reporting started, and we see the arrest of Prince Andrew, and we see the things that are starting to happen, it's because there was one reporter listening to the noise. And I always keep that in mind because I listen to the noise locally. And I've been doing that a lot, and probably listening to far more people than Julie Brown ever listened to. But when you're an investigative reporter, you can see what other people don't see because it doesn't exist in the headlines. It doesn't exist in the arrests or the court filings. And if anything about the Epstein files taught us anything, it was how many people knew, how many people didn't speak up, how many people went along with it because it was a mob mentality. It was a celebrity mentality. And we have that in every community. It is not just Epstein. It is not just the federal government. And really, when you look at what he did, he got into politics, got into music, got into acting, got into school photos, really was absolutely everywhere in a community. And when you do that, it buffers you from prosecutions. And I think the most outrageous thing to me about the whole Epstein case was the fact that an attorney general in the state of Florida gave him and his known and unknown associates, and let me say that really slowly, known and unknown associates, immunity. And that's like beyond diplomatic immunity, beyond judge immunity. Can you imagine if everybody you ever knew in your life would have immunity from prosecution just because they knew you? The power that that would bring. And we see the power that he had. And just because somebody's names are in the Epstein files doesn't mean that they've committed a crime, doesn't mean there's going to be any prosecutions, but it does show you really who knew. And so taking that theme, we've been doing that here in Santa Clara County because we're the heart of Silicon Valley. And there is nowhere where power and money is stronger than here. We have developed the technology that is used all over the world, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated by the fact that we have cameras on police officers, on flock cameras in our homes, on Ring cameras, and everybody's starting to catch up to where that is a problem. But the fact that we have a judge in Santa Clara County, Julie Emedy, issuing orders that I can't record, and having police officers serve me with those orders that I can't record outside courthouses that I've been recording outside of for 10 years, that's where it's time to pick up the fight. And when we do our reporting, I always see in the comments, just sue, just sue. And for anybody who's ever been in court, you know that is not an easy decision. It's a costly decision. You need a lawyer that is going to be able to have your back on the issue. And I do want to tell you that I had a lawyer because of all of you and because of these videos. And it was the video where the police officers, the sheriff's deputies, were serving that order on me outside the courthouse. It was, all of that was taken on one day. It was February 3rd. We went to the courthouse and got served with that order. And when you're a journalist and you're about public access, you're about thinking about how do I get information and how do I give the important information to the public, when a judge issues an order that obstructs that access that intuitively you know you have, that it's very triggering to a journalist. And hi, Johnny, nice to see you in here. And so that happened to me the first time in 2017 when I was seeing these sheriff's deputies beating up on a father in a courtroom because he was looking at his court file. Now, I believe after 6 years of being prosecuted for recording that cop, and I'm going to go over how much that cost again in a second, to prosecute a journalist, I was in the court file room. I instinctively grabbed my cell phone. Cops broke my hand, took my phone without a warrant, searched my phone in front of me, which was very, very triggering. And the cost of that to taxpayers, thank you very much, Skeet, for that gift. The cost to taxpayers, personally, I had to pay $20,000 for an attorney who subbed out of the case pretty quickly and didn't give me any of my money back. And that was money that I had borrowed. I didn't have the money for that. And then the prosecutor, the elected district attorney, decided to give 9 prosecutors to my case, 9. And most of those prosecutors were making over $300,000 a year. And it started out being a local court rule violation. Thank you, 5th Riv, for that. It started out being a local court rule that they turned into a misdemeanor. And it was prosecuted for 6 years, 70 hearings. That's more than any child abuse case, more than any DV case. It's more than murder cases in this county. The district attorney, Jeff Rosen, prosecuted me with 9 prosecutors, all of them making over $300,000 a year, many making over $400,000 a year, prosecuted me for 6 years for recording the police officer who broke my hand and took my phone. I had the best public defender that you could get. She was an amazing attorney. Her name is Leah Gillis. She is with the IDO. And so when the public defender has a conflict, which the public defender here clearly had a conflict, they assigned the IDO, and taxpayers paid her $58,000 to defend me in the Great Photograph case. So now that there's another order issued by Judge Julie Emedy, I could do a couple things. I could go up there and say, I know I have a constitutional right to record out here anyway. And you guys are always saying, charge. It's easy to tell people to charge the hill when you're not going to be the one sitting in that courtroom and risking going to jail. So when you guys say just sue or charge or just do it anyway, you need to think about what you're telling people to do. I'm not willing to do that until it comes to a certain time. I'm not even willing to file lawsuits about certain things. But I just went into the town hall here And I warned the staff that I am going to do a public records request in writing tomorrow, not doing it verbally. And if they don't comply with it and give me the records timely, then I am going to file a lawsuit against the town of Los Gatos. And the reason as a journalist I don't want to do that is because when we file lawsuits against bad cops, corrupt DAs, bad city officials, or to get our public records, it is the public that ends up paying for that. The public paid for me to be prosecuted and for my defense in that case. And I had a great defense, and I'm very well aware of how many people don't get a defense. I'm very well aware that I am a white woman, that I have certain privileges that are denied to a lot of people. And so I wanted to let you guys all know I have this platform because of all of you. Every single one of you who makes a comment that doesn't have to be removed by a moderator, every person that makes a comment, every person that emails me, gives me tips, or supports my work, you are responsible for an attorney seeing that video and agreeing to represent me in challenging that judge's order. It is unconstitutional in my view and in the view of many other attorneys I've spoken to, and that is a hill I'm willing to die on. That is a hill I'm willing to take the lawsuit on. I'm also willing to file a lawsuit against the town of Los Gatos, which has been my home for 16 years, as long as the district attorney has been in office. And I'm going to be requesting records that are not just the emails of these elected officials, but that are the DM messages and the text messages of elected officials who had their defense paid in a defamation case by taxpayers. And I want to go over that. That was Mayor Rob Moore and Council Member Maria Risto. They were two city council members. I asked for the records related to that. They were sued by a woman by the name of Lindley Hogan, who is also a woman who sued divorce attorney and minors counsel Nicole Ford. But Lindley Hogan sued them for defamation. And as a journalist, if I don't do my job by getting records and proving something before I write it, and I don't ask somebody for comment, and I commit defamation, I can be sued, and I have no shield. That's what I have to do. I'm not licensed, I'm trained, and I know that I can be sued. Now, I don't have a lot of money, there's no assets for anybody to steal from me, but I don't really want to be in court listening to people say that I didn't ethically do my job and I'm being sued for defamation. And so in this town, these two city council members reportedly went on that app Nextdoor and disparaged and reportedly defamed a local resident. She's very conservative. She had been critical of the courts and family court in particular here for over 20 years. She had struggled with the town. It looked like a lot of retaliation to me, and I started assessing the cost of her speech because this is a town where it is largely Democratic. And the one takeaway that I have, having reported on family court for all these years, the criminal courts, the police, and now politics, which I'd rather not report on locally, but I think it's important that we do it, is the fact that it's never always about money. We always say follow the money, and following the money is important, but it is often about the power. It is about the power of somebody campaigning and kissing babies and patting dogs and being kind, and then getting into office and not being so nice to everybody they serve, and then having taxpayers pay to defend them. And I, for one, don't want to pay for somebody's legal defense. Nobody pays for my legal defense if I don't do my job or if I say something I shouldn't. And so whoever says I was harassed today but I walked away, hey, if you look at the comments and you look at the people I'm reporting on, they usually make up false names and they come trolling. They come into this, which is why we have to have moderators. Walking away instead of going to court needs to be done 99% of the time. If you have a bad relationship and you're breaking up or you're involved in a divorce and you hire 2 attorneys to start battling it out, a lot of times that's on you, but it can be only one person that wants the litigation, and it usually is because they're fearful of something, or they're trying to exert their power in court. And there are some states where they're addressing completely eliminating family court. I don't think that is an entirely bad idea. You get married without an attorney, you should be able to get divorced without an attorney. And so I just wanted to do this update because I've been slow on launching our Court and Disaster podcast. That's going to be a podcast where we're going to show you some headlines and what you read and what you saw, and we're going to talk about really what happened behind the scenes. Because most of us, I grew up in a time period when I was being a mom and living my busy life where I would read the police blotter. I just saw the Los Gaddon here is now printing a police blotter of who was arrested and who had tools stolen and who had porch pirates visit them or who had their car broken into. And the amount of resources that we spend on that is a big deal. And if you've had that happen to you, you feel very violated. And there are certainly people that probably need a punishment. But when we talk about people who are involved in a divorce, going to jail because of something they said, or these restraining orders that are overly broad, I don't think people understand how much our courts are getting clogged with that. When we ran out of poor people that we were prosecuting for crimes, it looks like we moved to parents in family court. And the parents who probably really deserve to have some criminal investigation or mental health diversion are usually the ones that are clogging the family courts and getting the protection of the family courts. And there is a little bit of a power. People talk about narcissism. They say that word a lot, and I think people don't really understand that that really is just about power. Somebody who is consumed and self-absorbed with their power. And I'm going to be reporting a lot on the elected district attorney because last week the DA did two things that were problematic. One, he put a victim of a child SA case all over the news. Gave him an award called the Karen Sununu Towery Award and put him all over the news. And there is absolutely no legitimate reason for doing that. I started to investigate that a little bit more in connection with the dog kicker city council member, and I'm going to go hard on some investigative reporting. And I want to remind you guys that the most powerful person in your community is not the President of the United States, it's not the mayor, it's not your city council members, it's your district attorney. Because the district attorney has the power to prosecute journalists for taking a photograph of cops breaking their hand, or they have the power to dismiss cases against people who are really a harm to the society. Because we see more often than not, if you're supporting a DA's political campaign, not just with money, but with endorsements and with positive words to other people in the community, you're giving that district attorney power. And usually DAs who are given power don't bite the hand that feeds them. And that is the most powerful person in your community. And so I'm going to be doing some reporting on that. I'm going to be doing some reporting on the dog kicker city council member, Peter Ortiz. And I want to remind everybody that when a journalist calls and asks for comment, there's always different responses that I get. There is, and I work very hard to get a response. And if somebody has made a mistake, I can tell. If they feel bad, I can tell. That might even stop my reporting if it was a mistake. But when somebody is malicious and power hungry, that's what investigative reporters are for. And when Peter Ortiz allegedly kicked my dog in the elevator, it wasn't a hard, malicious kick like, you would have a viral video on it. I have asked for the video. They sent me the wrong video, so I'm having to do a records request, but I'm going to get it. You'll get to see what it was like. But regardless of what, whether he did it or not, whether it was an accident or intentional, he didn't apologize. And I want to remind everybody that when you make a mistake, it's not hard, it doesn't cost you money to be respectful. And when you make a mistake, own it and apologize for it. If it's not illegal, probably nothing's going to happen. There's actually, I see cases all the time where If you commit fraud, but it was a mistake, you're probably not going to have any consequences. That there is a difference between intrinsic and extrinsic fraud. And it doesn't hurt to be kind to people that you live in a community with. And you don't have to threaten to sue. But when you do threaten to sue, make sure your ducks are in a row, that you know what you're suing for. And imagine when you're suing or filing a police report that has consequences. You're dragging somebody else into court. You're putting somebody through the emotional and financial burden of that. And if you file a police report because you think somebody has done harm to you, you are saying, I think this person deserves to go to jail. And if you know anything about our jails, you can understand why it was so bothersome that our elected district attorney here in Santa Clara County would think that I deserve jail for recording a police officer in a court file room. And he only did that because I threatened his power. And so I don't use my skills as an investigative reporter maliciously, but when somebody does something that they don't apologize for, or they don't admit that it was a mistake, and they don't correct it, and they don't acknowledge it, it's going to get my attention. And that's what we're seeing in the Epstein files, is that people who were in those files might not have realized why they were there. They might have been completely innocent in what they did. But if I knew my name were going to come out in files like that, I would own it. I would say, this is what I did. I would say it publicly. I would say it loudly. I would say how I was duped, how it wasn't what it appears. And I would also take some responsibility on silence, because we see how many people really were harmed by individuals, and the harm often comes from staying silent. So for those of you who trust me to tell me your stories, to tell me your issues, I am listening. I listen a lot. I try to put it together to see what I can do with it. I try to educate you guys, because I can never report on every case. But if we can start holding people accountable and having impact at a local level, the way that one little reporter did related to Jeffrey Epstein, then that matters. And so I'm always going to tell you guys when I'm picking the fight, and the two fights I'm going to pick right now are public records, which include DM messages and text messages of elected officials. And I'm also going to pick the fight of fighting to be able to record outside those courthouses. We have done it since the dawn of time, and one judge, Julie Emedy, doesn't get to take away those rights, because when she does, she not only takes away my right to record people telling me things after court or whatever for news gathering purposes, but she takes away my right to disseminate information to all of you, and she takes away your right to receive the information that I can report. And one judge should never have that much power. And Julie Emedy is the one I'm going to pick my fight with right now. There's a lot of other people that are deserving of a fight, but that's the one that I think is worth fighting. And then we're also going to fight for these DM messages. I do want to say too that you guys, for those of you who follow my work, you know I'm reporting on a lot of things. And I do report primarily on family courts, and then everything that radiates out from that. And I have had some disturbing records responses from Sonoma County with respect to minors counsel records. And minors counsel are those court-appointed attorneys. And I have been hearing an alarming number of complaints. I'm listening from LA and Orange County and Santa Clara and Sonoma and Contra Costa County. That's a lot of different places in this state, Northern and Southern California. And Sonoma County, I recently did a ring records request. That's where I make the same records request to several agencies. Los Angeles produced a lot of records. Orange County has produced some. Santa Clara has gone back in the closet with our records, and we're going to have to open the closet door and pull some of those out. But they gave them to me once, so I know they exist. But Sonoma County, they said no records are responsive, and I know that's not true. So when the government lies to us and hides our records, that's a fight that I'm also going to do. But we're going to need some attorneys to back us up in that fight. So those are the fights we're doing. That's why I've been a little slow. I am going to start dropping more videos. There will be another one tomorrow. I'm going to start going back to writing. I have a lot of articles to write. That is not my favorite thing to do. I do not like writing. I need a lot of editors, a lot of lawyers looking things over, and sadly, a lot of things get left on the editing room floor that I know are important to all of you, but I have to be able to report in a way that has impact. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. I'm going to post in my community section later tonight the letter that was written on my behalf to the judge related to the recording order. And it basically is a letter from an attorney. I'm going to redact the attorney's name because I don't want you guys calling him and bugging him. When that happens, it's harder for me to get attorneys to represent us on these issues. But it is a Los Gatos-based attorney. And I feel very honored and privileged because I know how hard it is to get attorneys. I think I can see time and time again how many of you need an attorney for a criminal case, a civil case, or a family case. And I don't like using those resources, but I think this is one to use. And I wanted to explain that. So this will go in the link with the letter. I am going to redact the attorney's name. I am grateful that he is from Los Gatos. And I appreciate that he is willing to fight the fight. And then we're going to find an attorney willing to fight the fight for records in Sonoma County. And I want to add that public records lawsuits, the reason they're so important is we're fighting for the records on behalf of the public. And if I file those lawsuits, I don't get any money. I don't get a dime. I get the records if we win. And then I can do reporting off those records. And when a city agency is withholding those records, it makes me more determined to fight to get them. And so if we do our job as journalists well and make the records requests correctly, then attorneys can file those lawsuits on our behalf. And we don't pay them to be our attorneys, but they get paid if they win those lawsuits. And so I am going to start working a little bit harder on records requests because I think that we can get attorneys paid, and the more attorneys we get filing for these public records lawsuits, the better off the public is. So I appreciate all of you. 71 of you came in, maybe more came and left. 71 of you gave likes up. That's 100%. And I just wanted to say how much I really appreciate you. This was a 30-minute live. I know that's a long time on a Monday at 4 o'clock, but I really, really appreciate you guys. And I wanted to show you how your support, moving these videos around, resulted in us getting an attorney willing to take up the fight. So that's why I titled this video, Lawyers, You Can't Live With Them and You Can't Live Without Them. People used to say that about women. They say that about me a lot. And I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate the lawyers that represent me because I am not an easy client, because I am not very well liked in the courts when you're reporting on the courts. The judges I report on are the ones that might be ruling on these records requests. So thank you guys and have a good Monday night. Watch for the video tomorrow. And again, I appreciate the support.